Hi there, I'm Jacob. All month long, we've been talking about love. Love is showing others how much they matter to you. But how do you show others how much they matter to you? That, my friends, is a mystery. Huh. That sounded scary. But mysteries don't have to be scary. Some of my favorite books are mysteries. They can get really tense and stressful, but there's always that moment in the end when the detective solves the case. You will find the guilty party hiding out in the school. What school, you might ask? Elementary, my dear Watson. I searched all over the neighborhood, Mrs. Jenkins, but I couldn't find your missing parakeet. My bet is he's been in his cage all along, or my name isn't Wikipedia Jones. The item used to chase Madame Lafarge away was none other than the spatula. All that's fine for a book, but it's a little different when you have a mystery in real life. In today's story, we'll hear about Abraham and Sarah and how God told them to leave home. Where would they go? Well, that, my friends, would be a little mystery. Ooh.
Too close. Okay. All right. I'll see you guys in a few. Just.
Welcome, welcome, welcome! It's the last weekend of the month. You're all back in school, and I'm so glad to see you. Now, this month, we've been talking about love, a lot about love. And remember, love is showing others how much they matter to us. We've looked at God's epic love story, which is the Bible, and the first book in the Bible, Genesis, which means, I told you, in the beginning, tells us how God created everything in the world. Even people. Remember, he created, Adam and Eve, and everything God made was good. And God did it, all out of love for us. See, Adam and Eve had this special relationship with God. But then Adam and Eve sinned. They broke the only rule God had given them, and because of this, sin entered the world, our world. And as a result, people, you and me, no longer can have a perfect relationship with God or each other. Almost no one back then was following God. People were just being selfish, and they were looking out only for themselves. They did exactly what they wanted to do, even if it was wrong. And even though people didn't obey and follow God, He still had a plan to show love to everyone. God chose this man named Abram and his wife, Sarai. Now later God changes their name to Abraham and Sarah. Maybe you've heard of them, but for right now, they are still Abram and Sarai. Well, Abram was living in the city of Haran when he heard God's voice telling him to pack up his family and all of his belongings and move to the land of Canaan. Pack up and move, Abraham. Abram, he was 75 years old at the time. Can you imagine if God asked you to leave everything behind? Your home, some of your family, your friends, and go to a foreign land where you didn't know anybody? I probably would have said, nope, not going. God was asking Abram to do something really big and really hard and maybe even scary. As hard as it must have been for him to leave behind 75 years worth of memories, his home, some of his family, his friends. Well, he did. He packed up his family, his wife Sarai, and a cousin, his servants, and all their belongings, and they set out for the land of Canaan, just like God had told him. God must have known that Abram needed some encouragement because God also gave him this promise. It's a big promise. Here's what God told Abram. Now I'm going to read to you from Genesis chapter 12, verse 2 and 3. I will make you into a great nation, and I will bless you. I will make your name great, and you will be a blessing. I will bless those who bless you, and whoever curses you, I will curse. And all peoples on earth will be blessed through you. I'm pretty sure Abram and Sarah had some questions. Like, move now? At 75? Is this a joke? And back then, remember when they moved, they didn't have moving trucks. They didn't pack everything. They had to pack everything like on a donkey or a camel. And that's if they could afford those animals. But they trusted God and did what God said. They left their home and they set out for a new land. And they walked. And they walked. And they walked. Because they didn't have cars back then. They walked the whole way. Now that verse I just read, that verse is a big promise from God. God told Abram that he would make his family so big that they would be their own nation. God also said that the whole world would be blessed because of Abram's family. That means us today, that we would be blessed. What makes his promise so miraculous is that Abram was 75 years old, and at the time, him and his wife, Sarah, they didn't have any children. Abram, he might not have understood exactly how God was going to fulfill this problem, but he knew God loved him and that he could trust God's plan. So Abram and his family, well, they arrived in the land of Canaan where God had told him to go. When they arrived, Abram built an altar to the Lord and he worshiped God there. There was one not so small problem. In this great big plan, there were kids. God promised to bless Abram's children and their children, and they were to be given a land promised to them. But they didn't have kids. But God never wavered. He came to Abram again and he told him, "Look up at the sky, count all the stars if you can." Then God said to him, "That's how many children will be born into your family." Wow, there are lots and lots of stars. That meant lots and lots of kids. Abram would have a huge family. He was old. His wife was old and couldn't have kids. Yet God was telling him he would have lots of kids. Abram believed God. He trusted God. And God was pleased with Abram, because he believed. He did have a son, by the way. His son's name was Isaac. And all those stars in the sky that are his children, that's you and me. We are a part of Abram's family if we believe in Jesus. You see, Abram had a right relationship with God, the kind of relationship that God wanted for all people, for you and me. Abram loved God that much, so much that he was willing to trust his plan even when it didn't seem to make any sense. God promised that the whole world would be blessed through Abram's family. That's us. You see, God knew that ever since Adam and Eve sinned in the Garden of Eden, people had a great big problem. That problem was sin, and it separated them, it separates us from God. God knew the people he created needed to be rescued, but there was nothing they could do to save themselves. But God had a rescue mission all planned out of the very beginning, and he would use Abram and his family to bring it about. Did you know that Jesus was born into Abram's family? God used Abram to be the father of a great nation, the Israelites, and Jesus would come into the world through that nation. God would use Abram's family to bring salvation to the entire world. That means for you and me. Abram had no idea at the time what an important job God called him to, but he trusted God and believed that God had a plan to show love to the world. Our big idea today is God has a plan to show love to the world. That was through Abraham. Then we got Jesus. Okay, love starts and ends with God. Love has always been the point of how God has interacted with the world, with us. Since the beginning of time, God's love has always been on display. His love isn't just about what happened in history with Abram and Sarai. No, it's about us. God loves us today. By the way, all of the stars in the skies, that was us. We are part of Abram's family. If we believe in Jesus, we have the chance to share God's love with others right here and now. Remember, love means showing others that they matter to us. We know that God loved us first. God loved us enough to send Jesus for us. And in response, we can show how much we love God by loving others and showing people how much they matter to us. Remember, our big idea today is God has a plan to show love to the world, and He uses you and me to do that. Have a great week.